Oh God, you're beautiful. Every hour of every day. Oh God, come closer. Show me every step of the way. You lift me up. You are the rock.
Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the Catholic in Recovery podcast. My name is Scott Weeman. I'm joined, as always, by Father Sean Kilcawley. A pleasure to be joining you today, Father Sean. First, before we get anywhere, I want to send a shout out to IB Jacob, aka Bassanova, and Aisling Fuller for our wonderful intro and outro music. And today we're going to do a little storytelling. We could have done this at the beginning, but we're going to share We're going to share our stories. So this episode, I'll be sharing my recovery journey, and in the next episode, Father Sean will be sharing his recovery journey. And grateful that you're here with us and joining the Catholic in Recovery podcast. Before we go any further and dive into all of that, Father Sean, I've got a very important question. What's really going on?
So it's a good Monday. And the last couple of weeks I've been traveling. So I went to Reno and did a study day for their clergy over there, which was great. And then last weekend I went to Michigan. So among other things, I got to go to the Lions-Browns game, which was great, with my niece. And I never really spent time with this particular niece, like especially 12 hours out of the day, which was really delightful. She's about 19, and it was just really a great day. And then it turned out to be my stepmom's birthday on Monday, so my sister and I took her to lunch, and then I went over to Grand Rapids.
Technical difficulty there. Father Sean, you were mentioning after spending some time with family in Detroit, you made your way to Grand Rapids.
Yeah, so Covenant Eyes is an internet software accountability software company, and I've had a relationship with them for a very long time. And so they were having their 25th anniversary as a company, and every year they get together for a week in Grand Rapids, and they asked me to be a speaker for everyone on their staff, which was a really beautiful time to reflect on just the people that God puts in our lives, and then what our Lord does with it. And in many ways, I'm on this podcast with you right now because of an original conversation I had with Covenant Eyes, and then they started promoting me as a speaker. And from one talk came more talks, working with Integrity Restored for a while, and then kind of becoming known in that kind of recovery space. And at a certain point, you were reaching out to me and having a conversation, and reaching out to me again and trying to get me to this podcast, and one thing leads to another. So it was just a chance really to look back on that with a lot of gratitude, and for everything that the Lord's done in my life, and everything He continues to do. So, and now I'm back at the seminary. We've got a short week, and then this weekend coming up, I'm going back to Nebraska to make good on a raffle item, which I raffled off at my parish, which was taking 4 guys to the Lions-Chiefs game on Sunday. So once again, we could probably just morph this whole podcast into a Lions-Packers smack talking podcast, which would be kind of fun. So
it would have been more fun to do a few weeks ago rather than doing today, actually.
Yeah, it would have. After week 1, it would have been fun, and then we could have revisited that conversation over and over. Mm-hmm. What about you, Scott? What's really going on with you?
Yeah, I got to shout out Deacon Mark, an Iowa Catholic radio host, who had me on their show last Friday, and his opening question to me was, "Scott, what's really going on?" Appreciate that, Deacon Mark. And for me, just getting into routine with the family and enjoying a change of seasons. I would say that there are a few close family members who are struggling through some things. So kind of just learning to navigate where to involve myself and where not to. How can I be supportive to others who are impacted, and of course, not make it about me. And so really trusting in God and trying to cooperate with His grace around that, while also just enjoying time with family and doing a lot of exploration. We're around themes of inner child parts, reading through the book Litanies of the Heart by Dr. Jerry Crete, actually someone who we might have on as a webinar, to host a webinar with Catholic in Recovery, talking about like his work and IFS and other things like that, some psychology around addiction and the implications of family and such. But otherwise, just enjoying peace of a new day, and nothing too outstanding going on. My football team, the Packers, haven't been all that great, and thankfully, I don't put my life satisfaction in the results of that football team. But I do enjoy, having hobbies and such outside of faith and recovery, and it actually makes me think. Like when I got sober, a lot of the things that I enjoyed doing, playing golf, watching football, doing various activities with friends, was really all around drinking or other compulsive behaviors. And learning how to enjoy those things while being sober was, has been actually a huge gift in recovery, and recognizing that I can do those things and I enjoy doing them even more, and much more present, and don't have to worry about the hangovers or being liable to do something stupid or say something stupid and all that stuff. So, life is good.
So that leads to a question, and this might help just transition into kind of you telling your story. But so this topic of hobbies has been coming up a lot, and so like, are there hobbies that you had before that you're able to have in a redeemed way since you're in recovery? Or are there hobbies that just you had before and they're so associated with your addiction life that you have to leave them behind?
I think most hobbies are redeemed, have been redeemed. There wasn't that much that I was doing when I was active in my addiction that was really, it was just the sake of getting high or getting drunk for the most part. And there's some things like going to the casino and gambling that are things that I, are very, very, very careful about today, that I don't do as debaucherously. And if I ever do, it's very rare that I would find myself in a casino. But there are, the things that I was doing when I was actively using or getting high or even engaging in lustful behaviors that I would want to bring into this life, or that was really like all that was just so separate, so much like in the closet. Even when I went out with friends, out to bars and stuff like that, with my friends from grade school who drink themselves, but not like I did. I would find that when we were together, I would drink beforehand so that I would get a little buzz going, because they didn't drink at the kind of pace that I enjoyed drinking at. And then I would, if I was going to the bathroom, I would leave the table, stop at the bar on the way to the bathroom, grab a shot, go to the bathroom on the way back to the table, stop at the bar, take a shot, hopefully with no one seeing. So they didn't realize, or, weren't counting my drinks and all that kind of stuff. But, those are still some of my best friends today. And in fact, one was just paying a visit to Nashville this past weekend and got to spend some time with him. And I would say that there are some things like being of service. Cooking for other people is a hobby that I have now that I didn't really have the time for or care about, really that kind of companionship. I was just a matter of like, how do we feel as good as we possibly can as quickly as possible together? And so I would say that there certainly has been an evolution of hobbies. And I'm not sure what discussions you've been having, but I think that embracing hobbies in the spiritual life, in the Catholic Christian faith life, and in recovery is so important, and something that can be easily lost. We can easily lose sight of, particularly as we age and have increased responsibilities, or perhaps other people that we're looking out for. I think it's still important that we maintain some level of hobby in our life.
Good. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks. So tell me more about your story.
So I don't know that we've really all shared, even as you were describing, how you kind of got into this role that you serve now and throughout the church, and that all starting with Covenant Eyes. I was unaware of that. I knew that you had been partnering with Covenant Eyes for some time, so I am eager to hear your story in our next episode. But and feel free to chime in, ask questions, or pause me, as we're going here. But and I've told this so many times too that sometimes, and you probably similar to me, have just shared some things where it can become less of an emotional exercise. So I'll try to just pretend like I've never shared this story before. But I grew up in Northeast Wisconsin, born in Appleton, Wisconsin, and when I was in second grade, we moved to a small town, Greenville, Wisconsin, unincorporated, essentially farmland turning into suburbia, outside a city of about 60,000 people in Appleton, Wisconsin, and my parents divorced when I was in fifth grade, and that was one of the most significant events of my life. But prior to and even after that, had a really great childhood with good friends. Was active in sports, was good at school and enjoyed school. Went to public school. I say nominally Catholic, as I was baptized within the first few weeks. Actually, February 17th, about a month after I was born. And went through, first Holy Communion, reconciliation, and confirmation. But Wednesday night CCD did a lot of that heavy lifting for the family, so there weren't a lot of discussions about faith around the dinner table. It wasn't, we went to Christmas and Easter Mass, a few extra credit weekends a year. But that wasn't a huge priority. It never really was a huge priority for me. I did have this sense, though. I do remember quite vividly, even having this idea, looking at the stars as a young kid, probably being like 9 years old or so, and just feeling like there's this huge world. How was it created? And I felt so small in this moment. And bringing that to my mom, kind of asking her about God. I forgot how it was phrased, and I don't know that she was prepared to have that conversation, but just shared that God is all loving and all powerful. And so I had this sense of who God was to some degree, but was very, very not misinformed, but just unformed early on in my faith. It was around the same time, I was transitioning into high school. Active in baseball was the primary sport that I played, but I was also, played football and basketball and other sports as well with my friends. I was in policy debate, joined policy debate as a freshman. Thought it was a good intellectual activity that also had some competition to it, and enjoyed that really quite a bit, excelled pretty early. And so policy debate was a big part of my high school experience. Traveled quite a bit, doing switch side debate, debating on the positive and on the affirmative and the negative on the given subject for the year. For those of you who are unfamiliar with policy debate, there is essentially a topic for the given year every year, and then you get to debate a case, as the affirmative, and all the negate those cases as the negative team. I think it's a great exercise in being able to argue both sides of a topic, and that the inability to do so is really proof that you don't totally know your side of an argument. I have, as the big book says, since resigned the debating society, but it is still there and dormant if I need to really exercise some debating skills. I took my first drink when I was 17, junior year of high school, May, towards the end of my junior year. And I recall actually this idea. I was pretty, very keen on not doing things that were against the rules. An oldest child. I have one younger brother and then some younger step siblings. And so I have all the first child traits in people pleasing and, trying to find relationship through achievement and all of that. Still something that I have to be very aware of today. And I do recall this idea of really wanting to stay a virgin was a priority for me, although it didn't really come from this overtly Catholic or Christian idea, but just felt like it was the necessary thing to do to stay good with God, and protected that until one instance towards after my senior year of high school, when I was drunk and high. Gave my virginity to a woman that I just met. Was crazy experience that was still in the wow, I can't believe that I'm doing this kind of phase of addiction. And yeah, so didn't drink until I drank and began using drugs as well around the same time. There was an allure, something about marijuana that really kind of seemed enlightening, or like it would be provide some breakthrough in some consciousness that was really misinformed as well. So towards the end of my junior year, this date in May, close friend of mine, was back from the University of Wisconsin-Madison, where he would just finished his freshman year, invited me to go to a party with him and some of the older friends, which I did. We walked on the railroad tracks to this party, as we would do to get around places in Wisconsin if it was reasonable. And I remember pulling out of my cargo shorts lukewarm Bud Light, and he's saying to me, Scott, don't think so much about what this is going to taste like, because it's not going to taste great, I assure you. But just think about how good it's going to make you feel. And I loved the way that it made me feel. It made me feel, well, first, good about myself. My cares seemed to just drift away. I felt accepted. I felt like I could make my way into different social environments that I otherwise would be a little bit timid around. And yeah, so continue to drink through summer of my junior year, graduation parties and such. Somewhat or throughout my senior year as well. I remember there were a couple of occasions where I had like a Sprite bottle that we poured some vodka in and was drinking during school. Really started to like blur the lines of where my standards were. And throughout all of this, I essentially lowered the bar to meet my standards rather than raising my standards. Or no, lowering the bar of my standards to meet my behavior rather than raising my behavior to meet some standard. And yeah, my senior year, I got a debate scholarship for a school in New York City, Pace University. And after enjoying my summer, kind of my last summer in Wisconsin, I suppose, went to school in New York, and it was on. It was just totally on. The people that I began to actually made friends with during a summer orientation were doing various nefarious things. One was selling tickets, kind of purchasing tickets and then selling them on eBay. Very industrial people. My roommate was making fake IDs out of our dorm room and selling them to what seemed like every college kid in Manhattan. And another friend of mine was, starting to do some marijuana sales that I got involved with. So it was just totally different crowd than I was used to, and just was a chameleon and doing whatever it was that was going to be socially acceptable. By this, really lost focus of the things that were important to me: my family, my relationships at home, my schooling. Even debate became, really a second priority after pursuing women and drinking and drugs and all of that. And I got a few notices that if I didn't increase my academic achievement, that my debate scholarship would be lost. And I just ignored all of that. I basically was just living for the day. I was living one day at a time, but in the very wrong way. I kept telling myself tomorrow's going to be the day that I go approach my teachers to let them know why I haven't been going to class, and see if there was some exception that they could make, or if there's anything that I could do to at least get a passing grade in the class. Never did that. Got a bunch of failing grades. After my third semester, lost my debate scholarship, did not go back to college, and or at least to that school. And really, this is like a recent low. I got 2 DUIs at the ages of 19 and 21. After that second one, I went to an inpatient treatment program in Wisconsin, in Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin. And that was mostly actually to get my parents off my back. I was there for 15 days. I thought I was too young. I'm 21. I've got to be too young to be an alcoholic. I was comparing myself to other people my age, although not full comparison. I was just comparing my insides to their outsides, I would say. And most people were able to go to school or work on Mondays, whereas I just kept the party going. And I did fall in love with the girl around this time after I got out of treatment. And I stayed sober for about 8 months, really like white knuckling my sobriety. And that's essentially like I didn't have any spiritual alternative or healthy alternative in place for what I was doing for drinking and drugging. and was just like, okay, I can't take a drink today. I can't take a drink today. I went to a couple therapy appointments, like 2 AA meetings. My recollection of those AA meetings was it was really early and dark, and the people there were miserable. Although, in honesty, they weren't miserable. I was miserable, and my experience with them was just a projection of how I was feeling. And after starting to date this girl, I fell in love with this girl who was from a great Catholic family, a year younger than me in school, went to my high school. It was a lot of fun, great person at the same time. And I wanted what she had as far as just her faith and family life, although I wasn't willing to do anything to get it. Just thought that maybe by osmosis, staying close enough to her, that it might rub off on me. And my drinking and drug use and subsequent lying and deceit and manipulation was a huge source of pain in that relationship, and for good reason. She was we were on and off and on and off and on and off, and developed a lot of codependency as well throughout the relationship, and essentially needed each other in order to be well. And so made a decision, and she was pleading with me many times, Scott, just please, just be honest with me. Just, can't you just slow down or stop drinking or just drink on weekends? And she proposed a few solutions. One was to become Catholic missionaries and move to Turkey. And I would have gone along with that. I would have complied. I had no idea what a Catholic missionary was, and what we would do in Turkey, I have no idea, but was willing to do whatever it took to stay in her good graces. And we instead landed in San Diego. Her sister was living there previously. I had a friend who lived in San Diego. She had a friend from college who lived in San Diego. My uncle lives in Anaheim, and so make some trips out there. And we moved in 2010 from Wisconsin to San Diego. This is a lot like switching seats on the Titanic, and thinking that the problem would be resolved if we made some geographic change. But the problem was me, and I was coming along. And so, and then I remember actually that we left in August of 2010. I was 25 years old. And I remember even the day before, sneaking into her car, where I knew that she had a little stash of marijuana in her center console, and kind of rummaging through that to smoke it and get one last high. And I think I kind of left it unkept. Her brother or something was snooping around or looking at it and found it and asked her about it. And she asked me about it, and I denied it forever. And of course, she knew that it was mine, and I was unwilling to be honest. And just the disgust on her face as we were leaving her driveway to start traveling to San Diego to move and kind of pick up our life, was already started in this dishonesty and this deceit. And she was just crying I think for like the first 4 hours of just like, I can't believe I'm moving across the country with this guy. And I would have been the same way. I mean, it was just, I treated her terribly, and really in the end stole her peace of mind and stole her ability to make a sound decision given all the facts about what was really going on, because I was unwilling to be honest with her or anyone, or especially myself. So we got to San Diego, and I moved into a place with my friend. She moved into a place with her friend. I got a part-time or a full-time job working, doing some marketing, selling custom websites and SEO for real estate agents. I was terrible at it. I was meanwhile serving tables at Red Lobster. I started working at Red Lobster in like 2008, switched locations a couple of times. I got transferred to San Diego so I could keep my job, and hadn't finished my bachelor's degree at this point yet. Was going nowhere. And so we got to San Diego and just kind of started working. I was really terrible at my day job because I was mostly battling through hangovers in the morning, and just had it was a sales position, and I was just unskilled at hearing the word no from people. And so I was really bad at sales. And that year went on pretty unsatisfactorily. We did dip our toes in the spring of 2011 into a young adult community during a Lenten Bible study that I was essentially willing to do whatever again to stay in her good graces. And, if that meant trying to become a good Catholic boy or look like a good Catholic boy, I was willing to do it. So I was there for all the wrong reasons. I remember that lasted maybe 3 or 4 weeks into that Lenten small group Bible study series. And I had pretty much given up, and she had given up. And come the summertime, she had found out from my roommate that I was being dishonest with her in a number of different ways. And she wanted nothing more to do with me. I was back home in Wisconsin for about 2.5 weeks. Two of my closest friends were getting married 2 weeks apart from each other, and so was there for both weddings. And before the second wedding, actually, I wasn't hearing from her. The day before, was calling her. She wasn't answering. I finally got a call from my mom, who she had reached out to, saying that she's not going to pick up the phone, to stop calling her. She's done. The relationship is over with. And for the next probably month and a half, I just drank myself to sleep every night and tried to numb the pain of all that. I was essentially alcohol and drugs, and lust became both my problem and my solution. They were my problem. They were the source of all the challenges in my life, but they were also what I reached for in order to find freedom or escape from those challenges, which, had was effective in the short term, but just contributed to long-term problems. So there was this day of destiny, I guess you could say, where in October, she gave me, I don't know, she was kind of giving me a second chance. I told her that I was getting sober, and I told her that I was being a good Catholic boy. And she asked if I would take a look at one of her papers that she was working on for a master's program in social work. I was just kind of helping to offer some suggestions, do some light edits, and was happy to do so. Again, stay in her good graces, whatever I had to do. So she asked if I would do that this one day. I said yes. She said, I'm going to go for a run, and I'll be back in about an hour. If you can take a look at it and send it over to me by then, that would be great. So before I even opened up my computer, I, of course, packed a bowl of marijuana into a pipe and smoked that in my little studio apartment. A few minutes later, heard a knock on the door. She came in. This look of kind of excited to see me turned into this look of disgust when she smelled the marijuana in the room, and locked eyes with me and said, Scott, you are absolutely hopeless. You are never going to change. And she said exactly what I was feeling. And I thought, I am absolutely hopeless. I am never going to change. And drank myself to bed that night. The next day, the afternoon sometime, took my little beach cruiser bike, pushed it through the heavy sand. This was a Sunday. Took my beach cruiser to Mission Bay, kind of pushed it into the sand, collapsed there for a bit, and just like in great despair, pulled out my phone, which seemed to weigh about 500 pounds, and called 3 of my closest friends back home to tell them what they already knew, which was that I had a problem and needed help. I called my mom and my dad, tell them the same thing. And they were glad to hear that and supportive. And I think kind of knew that they couldn't be the extent of my help. I kind of knew that as well. I didn't use these terms. I didn't have that in my vocabulary yet, but something along the lines of, I need some accountability. Can I call you once a day to just tell you that I hadn't drank yet that day, or since we spoke the day before, and just let it go to voicemail if you're not available. This is just for me to kind of check in, and I'll call you back again the next day. Began doing that, drank myself to bed as I always did that night. And then the next morning, October 10th, 2011, I went to an early morning AA meeting, and it was a 7 a.m. meeting. I was typically sleeping through hangovers at this time, about 3 blocks from the beach in Pacific Beach, San Diego, at St. Andrews by the Sea Episcopal Church. Got there a few minutes early. The meeting was on the second floor of this building that had an open staircase up to it. I heard laughter from above and thought, this is probably where they are, but it's got to be the wrong group. If these people have any idea what I'm going through, there's no reason for anyone to be laughing. And but I hesitantly made my way up the stairs, found my way in the back corner of the room in the half measures section, and we had a meeting. And I don't remember exactly what the topic was of the meeting. I must have shared something. I do recall the anxiety of, as in the introduction, as we were going around, people introducing themselves to open the meeting. And, hi, my name's Brian, I'm an alcoholic. Hi, my name's Sherry, I'm an alcoholic. It was coming closer and closer to me, and the anxiety of actually having to say that aloud was frightening. Um, After the meeting, we got in a circle, about 30 of us who were at the meeting, standing up, putting our arms around each other's shoulders, and prayed the Lord's Prayer. And this was one of the few prayers that I still remembered from my childhood. And this feeling of just being at home swept over me. I didn't have a ton of time to sit with that, as immediately afterwards, a man darted across the room, looked me in the eyes, and said, "I know exactly how you feel. You don't ever have to drink again." And I've shared about this before, but that man saved my life, Michael. He invited me to go get coffee right away afterwards. Not, "Hey, what does your schedule look like later this week?" or "What's your weekend look like?" But like, "Right now, let's go get some coffee and talk about this." And we did, spent about 2 hours after that meeting. And then, he said, "All right, well, if you feel the urge to drink again today, give me a call. I'll be happy to answer. And if I don't hear from you, let's meet again at the meeting tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. If you have a copy of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, bring that with you. And actually, if you have a Bible as well, bring that too." And so began to, I did have a Bible, a big book that I gotten from when I was in treatment that moved around with me everywhere I went. I had this big Bible that my mom got me for my confirmation, which also went with me everywhere I went, unused. This is that actual Bible. It's a coffee table Bible, as I've heard it referred to as before. It's like, way too big. And so we started reading through every the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, the first 164 pages. We created a little bit of an index here, which for those who are watching on YouTube, you might see. I can perhaps share some stories around the index and all of that he had me create. But basically, we went through the Big Book word for word, cross-referencing that with the Bible, going to a meeting every day. One day, he had both books, and he held them up, and he said, "This book is for people who don't want to go to hell. And this book, the Big Book, is for people who have been there and have no interest in ever going back." And that seemed to resonate with me. And I also was very motivated to win back my ex-girlfriend. And so I called up this guy, Brock, who was leading the Bible study during the Lenten series that we had, and to see if the young adult Bible study was still taking place at St. Bridget Parish. And that was a Wednesday, day 3 of my sobriety. We said, "Yeah, we're meeting tonight. Why don't you come on by?" So started attending this young adult Bible study. And I thought it was going to be a bunch of people who were socially awkward and just like were way too good for me, I guess, or just, had no history of sin and were just on the straight and narrow. I thought I would have nothing to relate to. Don't get me wrong. There were a few people who were socially awkward, but there were an overwhelming amount of people who were just normal young adults and could relate to and connect with as friends, and share service opportunities together with, and share, really a spirit with, learning from them. Brock became a best friend, and we started to connect weekly, every other week or so, and I was learning the faith and had a bunch of questions. He was helping me throughout that. And I'll just say, for that first couple of years, the track of recovery and the track of my renewed faith in the Catholic Church was going hand in hand. And I'll pause there just to take a breath. And so that's really kind of what it was like and what happened as far as me getting into recovery and then experiencing new life.
Yeah. So what happened with the girl?
Oh, yeah. It's quite a good question. So she was not impressed, as she should not have been. My idea was that if I did, was just a good Catholic boy for 30 days and presented as sober, that that the years of difficulty and pain would be removed. And that was very short-sighted. I don't think I'm unique in that. As we get recovery started, we are probably very impatient about all the things that we had lost coming back. Some things came back, some things did not. And some things had to be made new. Relationships, primarily. And, I'd say that there are still some relationships that are challenged and because of that period of time where I was actively pursuing alcohol, drugs, lust, and other addictive, compulsive behaviors and substances, and put that before other people and hurt other people. my big book is broken at the seams on page 62 because I had to read this multiple times a day. And actually, this is lines 11, 12, and 13 on page 62. We invariably find that at some time in the past, we made decisions based on self, which later placed us in a position to be hurt. And I was hurt because I had made decisions based on self in the past. And so needed to be accountable and take responsibility for those selfish decisions that I've made in the past. And of course, I was not all that willing to do that, but with the help of great people in recovery, with great literature, which normalized my experience, and with reliance upon God, this new relationship that I was forming with God, which started off in a very general way and then became a little bit more focused as I got into the church. The ex-girlfriend did not come back. And perhaps, that's for the best. Going a little bit further, I should note, a year into my sobriety, I celebrated, 1 year, October 10th, 2012. Shortly thereafter, completing the steps, did my ninth step amends with her, and we were very, very thorough in that process of doing that ninth step amends. Did the eighth step with my sponsor and making a list of all persons we had harmed and become willing to make amends to them all. Of course, this is after doing the first 7 steps and doing a thorough moral inventory, sharing that with God, ourselves, and another human being in steps 4 and 5. He had me write a list of, he proposed making that 8th step amends list by making 3 columns. One being like I'm ready to make these amends, I could do it right now kind of column. The second one being the, probably not, but I could probably be talked into it. And the third column being the, I'm never going to make that amends, no way that's going to happen column. And, we were very thorough for each, wrote a do not send letter expressing, what I did wrong, taking responsibility for that, sharing what I was doing to make it right, and just giving the opportunity to, is there anything that I can do for them to express themselves and their experience and, to help really make it right. And then after those do not send letters, my sponsor would take a red marker and cross off all the places where I was justifying my bad behavior or blaming other people. That was an incredible exercise. It was painful and it was rigorous, but it was really helpful just to assume the responsibility. And then went out and made amends when appropriate and really was strategic about it, making, some of those easier amends at first to get used to the pattern in the process, and then making some of those more challenging amends. My amends with my dad and stepmom was one of those very challenging amends. My amends with my ex-roommate, who was the one that kind of put me on blast and told my ex-girlfriend about all the wrong things that I was doing, which was not a lie, but I was holding this resentment toward him that he was the one that exposed me. I should every day give him gratitude for helping propel this new way of life. But at the time, it was I couldn't imagine someone could actually do that. And my girlfriend, my ex-girlfriend, was on that list as well. We set a date and a time to make amends with her. With my sponsor, did some extra practice and role-playing that amends as well. You remember being in Brugger's Bagels, where we would meet on a regular basis and doing this work across the table from each other. I was preparing to be honest with, messed around with other women. And she suspected that. So was suspecting that the question would come, have you cheated on me? And so prepared to answer that in a very, in just an appropriate way. The amends came, that question was asked. I couldn't come to be honest with her in that moment. And, she left very unsatisfied. I left, or, it was at my apartment. I, remained thinking this is not the right, I couldn't even do this in this space where it was supposed to be complete honesty. I was still trying to protect myself and try to manipulate outcomes. And so then called my sponsor and told him that it didn't go as planned and that I messed up and I'm a failure and am I ever really going to change? And he encouraged me to go and see if I can swing by there tomorrow and essentially make amends for making amends. And I did that. And, that ended basically with her saying, Scott, I can't stand the sound of your voice. Get out of here. This left me totally, totally torn up. And I remember calling my sponsor on my drive home from from her place and just weeping, like so sad, so distraught, so she became my idol, and I couldn't imagine life without her. Um, and so the idea that she wasn't going to come back was terrifying. And I remember him asking me very vividly, very point blank, Scott, do you believe in God? Yeah. Do you believe in God that is all powerful, all knowing, and all loving? Yeah, I guess that's the God that I believe in. Well, then what are you so worried about? And this annoyed me to some degree, but it also brought me comfort in that there was someone there who kind of had this idea, this vision that life could be okay. I didn't have that vision, but I could borrow his for a bit, and continue to propel my way through recovery. Um, yeah, by God's grace, remain sober through that. That would have been, probably a great
Mm-hmm.
temptation to just go and throw it all away, throw the year plus of sobriety and the good internal spiritual work away. But God and some really great people held me during that time. Um, Still involved in the church and the young adult community. In fact, I started to, this began early on, to recognize that the things that I was doing in my 12 step group, I should be doing in the church, like being of service and sharing honestly with people and
Yeah.
connecting in fellowship. And man, what's happening over there in those 12 step rooms is just, it's amazing. It's saved my life and is continuing to save my life. And at church, I kind of felt like I needed to just be the right person to everyone. Now that's maybe more of a me thing than it is a portrayal of what the church was expecting of me. But didn't feel like there was as much freedom to just kind of be open and be myself. So I took a position as an usher at the church. Now, this was also in my early sobriety, so I was thinking that what's the best way to get my ex-girlfriend to see me in the church and think of me as a good Catholic? Oh, I should pass the baskets at church. I'll become an usher,
Mm-hmm.
and she won't miss me. Again, manipulative. My intentions were not great. I don't judge people on their intentions. I think that all of our intentions are mixed with a variety of different factors, and good and questionable intentions and such. Around this time, there was this woman Dorothy in my AA meeting who was there every morning. She was also at the 9 a.m. mass where I was ushering. And a few months into sobriety, she asked if I wanted to go get coffee with her after mass. And so we went over to after mass one day in January, went to next door to the Lutheran church. They were still in service for another half hour. And so we drank their coffee at their coffee cart and sat on their bench. And Dorothy and I would just chat about what was going on. She was like 43 years sober. I was newly sober. I think she was living vicariously through my youth a bit and offering a lot of just wise responses and questions, mostly like, well, Scott, that sounds a lot to me like self will run riot. And she would just say things like this. And
Mm-hmm.
uh, she lived across the street in the Luther View apartments, and the coffee was prepared by a recovering alcoholic who was going through RCIA to become Catholic. So we had the permission to be there. And I now still think of and will go to that place where Dorothy and I used to sit, call it my power bench. It's where did my third step, really did my third step prayer there. And it's just a place that I'll go to for some support and just to get back in that place of like the wonders of early recovery and the new life that I found. Dorothy and I went on a trip together when I was 9 months sober from San Diego to Chicago and back. I dropped her off for a weekend with her daughter, and meanwhile, then went and met some friends for a golf weekend. And we drove without the radio on in the car that entire time. So this wonderful, like 2 weeks of driving Miss Dorothy. She passed away in 2014, and when we had our first child in 2018, we named her Dorothy. I met my wife in the young adult group at St. Bridget, and um, yeah, that we didn't date right away, but enjoyed each other's company and just paced ourselves in a way that was right and just. Saw each other at Wednesday night Bible study. There was a young adult sports group that was playing beach volleyball on Saturdays or Sundays. We'd see her there as well. And then in 2014 began to date. asked her to marry me in 2015, and we got married in September of 2016. And actually, it was around that time when we started dating and got engaged that Catholic in Recovery started. Whereas finding this new life in 12-step recovery and in the church, thinking that the church could learn a lot from the wisdom of 12-step recovery, started a website, catholicinrecovery.com, and would write articles weekly or every other week related to topics that overlapped 12-step recovery and Catholic faith. 6 months into that or so. And meanwhile, I was still working, serving tables at a restaurant. I had graduated from Red Lobster to Seasons 52, which was under the same ownership group. And I loved my job, but I hated my job title as server or waiter. But it allowed me the freedom and the flexibility to do that, that work during the day, that spiritual work, and just become active. I went back to school, finally got my bachelor's degree. And started writing Catholic in Recovery. 6 months into this website, I got a message while serving tables at Seasons 52 from a woman, Lisa Hendy from Ave Maria Press, their editor-at-large at the time. And she asked if I was interested in doing some more writing. And that turned into a proposal for the book, The 12 Steps and the Sacraments. And about 2 years after that proposal, was accepted. Well, it was accepted on Holy Thursday of 2016. I recall actually Thursday morning, 7 a.m. men's meeting that I would attend regularly. Walking out of that and getting the phone call that the team at Ave Maria Press had met and approved of the book to be published. And that was very exciting. Started working on writing the manuscript for that book. Did a 4-week speaking series in San Diego at the cathedral, St. Joseph Cathedral. And kind of on the 12 steps in the sacraments. Week 1 was baptism in steps 1 through 3. Week 2, reconciliation in steps 4 through 9. Week 3, Eucharist in steps 10 and 11. Week 4, confirmation and step 12. And the best part of that speaking series was when I was done talking each week and other people had a chance to share their experience, strength, and hope related to their addiction challenges or their recovery or their loved ones' challenges with addictions, but through the lens of our faith and Catholic sacraments and devotions, things a little bit too specific for a secular 12-step meeting. And it became very clear. We need to keep bringing these people back together. And with the help of the DRE at the cathedral, who was 20 plus years sober, we put together a format for a meeting. And on my birthday, January 10th, 2017, we had our first Catholic in Recovery meeting, bringing people together with a variety of addictions, compulsions, and unhealthy attachments, putting together a format that also relied upon a reflection that reflected upon the upcoming Sunday's Mass readings, overlapping that with liturgical themes, recovery principles, and then just having a meeting. That was a general recovery meeting. Later that summer of 2017, we started 2 more specific meetings in San Diego, one for family members impacted by a loved one's addiction, like Al-Anon type of principles, and the second for men recovering from pornography and lust addiction. Then the book was published, did some Catholic media, word got out about Catholic in Recovery, started getting inquiries from people outside of California who wanted to start new groups. And from there, we've been helping people get new groups started ever since then. We've got about a little over 200 active Catholic in Recovery meetings now and a variety of resources. It's grown in ways I would have never imagined. In addition, my wife and I now live in Nashville, Tennessee. We moved here about a year and a half ago after enjoying life in San Diego, and have 3 kids. Dorothy, our oldest, is 7. Anna Lee is 5, and Walter is 4. And those 4 people are the greatest gifts of my recovery. And as Michael told me, he said, Scott, you got to think of your recovery as a plate, not something that's on your plate. So your recovery is the plate upon which everything in your life rests. If it's something that's on your plate that you're trying to make room for, like all the other things in your life, it's not going to work out. And so I also heard things like, don't let the life that AA gave you get in the way of your AA life. And so prioritizing recovery so that I have the freedom to be a husband and a father and a beneficial presence to my communities is something that I value and cherish quite a bit. That's the story in a nutshell. It's a story that's still being written. I would say one of my joys is being able to connect with you, Father Sean, on a bi-weekly basis and share the beauty of recovery. And man, it's been, in addition to meeting Pope Leo last month, I have gotten the blessing of getting to know so many people, and to get to see transformation take place right in front of me. And I got to believe that if people are transforming in that way and God is making that possible for them, that He has and is making that possible in my life as well. So I try to remain open to what He might be calling to me to, and try to grow and not stay too rigid in the process.
I'm really grateful and grateful for your just willingness to be vulnerable and penetrable. And yeah, like one of the things that just struck me as you were talking, because as we do, we always kind of compare like, oh, what was I doing in that part of my life, or what was that like for me? I just experienced a lot of sadness, especially as you were in that part of your life of, okay, I need to get better. I'm not getting better. I have a chance to get back into this person's good graces and I train wreck it. Just the sadness around maybe that relationship with that person. But what kind of stood out to me most, I think, is the grace of having someone in your life who is not enabling you. And kind of just like having someone in your life who is willing to say like, you're never going to change, I'm done. Because it seems like that was a big catalyst for you to like, okay, I'm going to start going to meetings. I'm going to pick up the 500-pound phone. And that's just a huge grace. Even though, like life goes the way it goes. And I'm sure you're incredibly grateful for your life that you have now. But there's also like, because I was just thinking about the many people in my life who maybe could have said that to me along the way and weren't courageous enough to. And I want to say that with a lot of reverence because, there's also a lot of people in my life that, I have hurt along the way. And so, but it's just, yeah, like that was just like a really kind of big thing. Cause I was just thinking about like the many, college students I talked to, or, girlfriends that I talked to, and, their boyfriend or their fiance has this little problem or maybe a big problem. And, they're not quite willing to hold the kind of boundary that might facilitate change. And so, that's just something I was just reflecting on with a lot of reverence, a lot of gratitude.
I appreciate that. I credit that statement as being perhaps the greatest thing that anyone has ever done for me. And, I was dragged into different priests' offices to talk to priests who I didn't know about, things that I thought they didn't know about. And that didn't really move or work. And, the greatest thing that anyone's ever done for me is her having the courage to say, Scott, you are absolutely hopeless and you're never going to change. My sadness, and it is sad that that person who did that for me, a lot of people in my life have gotten to benefit from my recovery and see the change. And she's not one of them for good reasons, that just maintaining healthy boundaries. So she's gotten to witness and experience the pain of my addiction, but never got to experience the fruit of my recovery. And that's just something that I really need to turn over to God, but it can be a source of a lot of sadness and pain. I credit her mom's prayers for me as being those that really aligned God's grace in my favor. And, I've done what I could to express my gratitude for that, but again, have to maintain a healthy distance and out of respect for her. And, this is trust me, I try to please everyone that I can and try to, maintain or manage things. So that's a huge gift. Yeah. And now look at this, as we're recording, two of my precious little kids are joining us. You guys got to say hello and then say goodbye.
Hello, goodbye.
Yep, say it.
No, I have to hold the microphone.
Okay, you want to hold the microphone? Here you go.
Goodbye. I got to.
Okay, here you go.
Hi, Bye. Goodbye. I love you.
All right. And you are loved too, kids. Daddy needs to finish this up.
That's beautiful.
I'll be out in just a little bit, okay? Mm. Okay. I'll see you guys in a little bit.
255. Gospel.
So there you have it. There's the in real time the gifts of my sobriety right there.
Yeah.
Appreciate your questions. Thank you all for listening and entertaining my journey of recovery. And I love hearing stories. I love sharing stories. And of course, mine. That's probably the only thing that I have authority to speak on is my experience, strength, and hope. So I speak on a whole bunch of other things that I don't have authority to speak on, but yes, grateful for our listeners. So if you have a question that you'd like answered on the podcast, please send it via email to podcast@catholicinrecovery.com. This one from Brandon W. in Wisconsin. He writes, "Love the podcast. Hearing your experience and wisdom has gotten me to continue in my lust recovery with more effort than ever before. I now have a sponsor and am working the steps, but have a few questions. And the one that we'll tackle here is, I feel the need/want to get to an in-person meeting. However, there isn't anything in my area within an hour drive time. Is it okay for me to go to an AA meeting even though I am in SA?" And this could be applied for other experiences as well, but not a local SA meeting, which might be common in a more rural area where drive distance different, but wants to get to an in-person meeting. Would an AA meeting would that be okay? What do you think, Father?
Yeah, I mean, the first guys in SA recovery went to AA meetings. So yes, like go to an AA meeting. I am always an advocate, though, too, of regular phone meetings or regular Zoom meetings. There are so many available now. It's really hard to miss them. So like going to sa.org, the SA website, and look for online meetings, you can always kind of find them. I had somebody who was looking for an ACOA meeting, and their website is also very good. You go to adultchildren.org, you go find a meeting, virtual meeting. You can apply the filter, like they wanted men only. I went to men only, and there's a bunch of them that meet online, and it's easy to find. So it's one of the gifts of COVID, I think, is that recovery is easier in terms of finding a meeting because all the meetings went online and many of them stayed there. So, and I mean, we could probably have a whole other conversation about virtual versus in person. And some people are like, I hate virtual. It's not worth it unless it's in person. And I'm a little bit like, I think you're excuse making because I have connected really well with people through virtual platforms. And I don't know that it's actually, something that needs to be an obstacle. The point is that you go to a meeting. In my own recovery journey, I started going to daily meetings for a while. And I just called into the same phone meeting every day. And there was a lot of people on the call. And it's amazing the way you feel connected to people by virtue of hearing their voice. And you kind of know who they are and you know a little bit more about their story and their perspective. It's our Lord is always going to provide a way. So yes, I go to AA meetings, but also don't forget there's lots of ways to go to meetings.
Yeah, I agree. I think there is a larger discussion to be had. There are benefits to virtual meetings versus in-person meetings, the convenience, the ability to get to a meeting at any time of the day. Also just, connecting with people in different regions, different cultural experiences, different, a diversity of experiences can be really helpful and wonderful as well. Anonymity can be maintained in a similar fashion. There are benefits to also being in-person meetings. Sometimes just an experience with the physical body of Christ can be incredibly renewing. I mentioned before my experience at a meeting, with the man darting across the room, look at me in the eyes. I know exactly how you feel. You don't ever have to drink again. I'm not sure how that would have been, kind of taken place in a virtual meeting. I'm not saying that that's the only route for me getting sober. and in virtual settings too. We want to rely upon the same practices, connecting with people, getting phone numbers outside, to reach out to people outside of the meetings. A lot of benefits there. Similarly, as we're talking about going to an AA meeting, but going to an AA meeting with a different condition. The only requirement for membership within AA is a desire to stop drinking. I think it might be a bit disingenuous if you're going there, but you're also having some recreational drinks. That may not be your problem per se, but I would say that if you are going to be attending AA, to also go in with really with the intention of not drinking. And everything that they're saying about alcohol can be applied to lust, sex, food, you name it. I know there's a woman who's very active in our community who's been sober, really active. Her primary challenge is eating disorder, anorexia, and she got sober well through AA from her eating disorder. And those people had a solution, and she just essentially applied everything that they were saying about alcohol to food, also while seeing a dietitian and getting that nuanced support that she needed in order to create a plan for her life. But and similarly, I was going to AA meetings, and I first sat down the drink and the drug, but was still struggling with lust, and began to attend, while attending AA meetings, was really just listening through the lens of my lust. I would say, however, that my sexual recovery, really went to the next level when I started to attend specifically SA meetings, and just being able to share in that format and with the specificity, although not specific to our behaviors, but just kind of everyone's there for the same reason, was very helpful as well. So hopefully that's helpful. I don't think you can go wrong by attending AA meetings locally to get a little bit of that flavor. You can also start a meeting yourself. It's an option. And, if you are willing to drive a half hour to an hour, just to get to an in-person meeting, I bet that there are others in the area who would be similarly willing to do the same.
Great.
So, really appreciate the question, Brandon, from my home state of Wisconsin. And want to encourage others to send in your questions to our email, podcast@catholicandrecovery.com. Where they are gratefully received. Father, that's a wrap on this episode. Appreciate you taking in my story. And would you conclude us with a blessing?
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Heavenly Father, we ask your blessing upon each person listening to this episode. We thank you for all of the ways that you have intervened in Scott's life, for the people that you've sent him, just to reveal your own heart to him. We thank you for just placing us in one another's lives. And just ask that we continue to be drawn closer to your heart. That your love may be made fruitful in us and the love that we have for others. And may Almighty God bless you, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
You live